about a year ago, possibly even more, Dave Kerr from the Museum of Modern Art in New York told me that they were working on the restoration of Forbidden Paradise.
Circa un anno fa Dave Kerr del Museum of Modern Art, la MoMA di New York, ha parlato con Jay dicendo che c'era stata questa scoperta.
And this is a film that I've loved even in its damaged form, in its shortened form, since the 1980s when, as a university student, I organized a screening, a program called The Unknown Lubitsch.
Mi sono innamorato di questo film anche nella sua versione danneggiata e non come quella di oggi. Già negli anni '80, quando ero studente all'università, ho organizzato una proiezione,
una rassegna
proprio su questo film.
Sì.
Parliamo della Czarina.
Sì, esatto. And so when Dave told me that they were working on the restoration, I got very excited because this for me is one of the key films in Ernst Lubitsch's late silent career.
Quando Dave mi ha detto che stavano lavorando sul restauro di questa pellicola, mi sono proprio emozionato perché è uno dei film chiave dell'opera di Lubitsch.
And then the true cherry on the cake, of course, was when he said to me that he was speaking with Nicola Lubitsch about it, and she said, "Oh, I'd love to be there."
Il gioiello che è venuto dopo, proprio dulcis in fondo, è che Nicola. I know. I've fallen into it as well.
Yeah, me too.
In italiano è Nicola per tutti, Nicola. Mi ha detto che poteva venire anche lei.
So, as you're probably aware, the Giornate del cinema Muto has had a particularly productive relationship with the films of Ernst Lubitsch. Last year, with the student Prince in Old Heidelberg, was a tremendous success, and we're constantly looking to continue that. How do I put it? That.
Relationship.
Relationship, exactly.
Rapporto. Viene più facile in italiano. Le giornate del cinema muto hanno avuto un rapporto appunto molto stretto con l'opera di Lubitsch. Se pensiamo all'anno scorso, quando il principe studente è stato presentato.
So I think we can.
Quindi possiamo andare a
open it up to questions.
Aprirla a voi.
Yes.
Sì.
Signora, suo padre è mancato quando lei era ancora piccola, tuttavia ha un ricordo di lui.
That's such a difficult. What do I remember of him? That's such a difficult question because it's just so general. I mean, what do I remember of him? My father was a wonderful father, you know. You don't, when you're little, you don't think of your father as a film director or a famous person. He was a very intimate, loving person. He always had time for me when he came back from the studio at night. I mean, his work was everything. But when he came back from the studio at night, we would sit in his study and listen to the radio to quiz programs. And I would have cooked during the day on my little stove, but I was maybe like 5 or 6. You know, these horrible cookies that would break your teeth, they were so hard. And our cook would have made wonderful, delicate, delicious Norwegian cookies, and he would always eat mine, because that's the kind of father he was. And he would... Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry.
Domanda difficile perché cosa si può dire quando si è giovanissima, ma non pensavo di lui come regista, come celebrità, ma come padre che tornava e noi stavamo insieme la sera a stare insieme a seguire sulla radio dei quiz program, show, no? Radiofonici. E durante il giorno, avevo forse 5-6 anni, preparavo dei piccoli biscotti per lui che erano durissimi, proprio roba da rompere i denti, e il cuoco norvegese, il Norwegian cook. Faceva il resto, ma ecco, una cosa diciamo intima e dolce.
Right. He was also That's enough, right, about that question?
Yes.
I mean, I can go on and on and on, but
Basta così, no? Come?
Sì, sì, no, volevo chiedere ancora una cosa. Qualche
I
anno
mean,
fa lei ha fatto un documentario su suo padre,
Documentary.
yes,
che raccontava...
I don't remember it. I didn't like it, so I don't
Non mi è
remember it.
piaciuto tanto. Quindi non
I didn't like me because I looked like some kind of a crazy bird, neurotic bird with my hands all over the place. So
un uccello esotico e sembrava lei stessa. Quindi non è che lo ricorda bene questo.
I use my hands too much, so I'm trying to
Usa
sit.
troppo le mani.
Yeah, so it's very Italian, I know, but
Any other questions?
the other thing about my father that I can tell you, the most important thing, he was very musical. My father, I think all of his film is very choreographed and very musical. And as a child, he was always playing the piano. When I went to bed at night, I could hear him playing. It sounded like Middle European cafes, this wonderful music.
Un'altra cosa molto importante era il ruolo della musica. Lui amava molto la musica e quando andava a letto come ragazzina sentiva il padre che suonava, ma tipo roba dell'Europa, no? La cultura del caffè,
Sì.
infatti del salone.
Klezmer, musica klezmer.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, like you know, like you would hear of a tea time in a German Kaffeeklatsch kind of thing. And he couldn't read music.
Suonava pianoforte.
Sì.
Suonava lui a pianoforte, non leggeva la musica.
He couldn't read
ma
music,
suonava.
but he played. It didn't matter if we had the most famous musicians in Horowitz or Rubinstein. My father was at the piano playing.
Ma dai guess?
Yes, yeah.
Potevano venire Horowitz e Rubinstein, quindi
Turbi,
personalmente faceva bene, ma non importava perché per loro era l'intimo di questa musica serale.
Volevo chiedere che rapporto aveva suo padre, il papà, con le sue origini, il fatto di essere ebreo?
The Jewish question.
It's a question I can't answer. I never heard the word Jewish until I was a grown-up.
La parola perché aveva pochi anni, quindi
We celebrated Christmas. He dressed up as Santa Claus.
e quindi non il Natale ebreo, quindi era come diciamo secular Jew.
He was secular, and in Hollywood, all half Jewish, half Christian, half Jewish were all Episcopalian, which is what I am.
Lei la chiesa episcopale protestante in America, perché a Hollywood erano tutti mezzi cristiani, mezzi ebrei, ma il punto qui è che è laico. Sì.
Invece parlando del film che viene presentato.
So about tomorrow's movie. Is it tomorrow?
Friday.
Venerdì,
Sì,
sì.
venerdì, sì. E quindi anche mi interessava capire, certo lei era bambina e quindi ricordi diretti non ne ha, ma credo poi l'avrà studiato il padre, no? Ecco, che rapporto aveva con l'attrice, la protagonista del film,
Che rapporto aveva il padre con Pola Negri?
Sì, certo, con Pola Negri che è stata
Do you remember
un'attrice
anything of
importante.
your
è stata
father's
importante il
relationship
loro
with
rapporto.
Pola Negri? Because this is reference to Friday's movie.
The last time I saw my father, I was 8. He never talked to me about being Jewish, about the world affairs, about his family. He never talked to me.
Non parlava di sua famiglia o di essere ebreo o di notizie del mondo, diciamo.
I mean, the one direct question I asked him was, who is the most beautiful woman in the world? I remember asking him that, and he said, Hedy Lamarr.
L'unica domanda davvero importante, capito?
Sì,
Chiedendo a papà chi è la donna più bella del mondo e rispose Hedy Lamarr.
Yeah. And I was always very disappointed that he didn't make a movie with Lassie or with, you know, Lassie or Little Women. My best friend her name was Linda Leroy. Her father, Mervyn Leroy, always seemed to be making, you know, movies that people had heard of, Little Women or Wizard of Oz or something like that. And then Daddy was making these obscure things. Woof woof.
E poi Piccole donne, era grande amica della figlia di Mervyn LeRoy, e quindi voleva...
I mean, he was useless to me as a famous person because none of my friends had ever heard of anything he did.
Era inutile Lubitsch a lei come persona, che le sue amichette e i suoi amici non sapevano niente di quello che faceva, cioè questi grandi titoli.
What is that? Oh, it's
She's
typing.
Buongiorno,
God, I thought it was water coming down or something.
Però diciamo che poi studiando l'opera del padre, approfondendo insomma quello che il padre ha fatto,
studying his
lei
work.
che idea si è
Studying
fatta,
his work.
appunto rispetto a quale può essere stata l'attrice o anche l'attore insomma che ha rappresentato un momento più importante
Sempre
per il
con
padre.
riferimento a venerdì o...
No, in generale. Diciamo,
Studying his work, not asking him about
Yeah.
it, but as you grew up.
As I grew
the
up.
sense of his relationship with some of these great people, and she began
Right.
with Pola Negri.
I think the great revelation to me, I'm not a film historian, I know nothing about film, but being my father's daughter, I had to go to all these film festivals and I had to go and see all his silent films, which I had frankly no interest in seeing. And the silent films were the great revelation to me because they were so modern. I went with my daughter who was then 15, 16, the first time I saw them. They just blew me away. It's a long answer, but somebody...
Non sono storica del cinema, non so nulla del cinema, ma crescendo con mio padre, cioè con l'opera postuma a questo punto di mio padre, non mi venivano certe cose perché non avevo nessun interesse nel cinema muto, ma poi fu la rivelazione, it was the revelation in these earlier films of his, cosa fu la sua opera.
I mean, I think that everything that my father became was right there. It's in the silent films. It's the birth of the musical is right there in The Oyster Princess. I mean, it's just such a revolutionary film. The musicality and the choreographed elements of everything.
Ma la noce proprio, l'inizio, il seme, ecco, di tutto il resto, per lei dice sta nelle pellicole mute, perché c'è la nascita per esempio del musical Oyster Princess in italiano,
Austrian Princess.
sì, quella delle ostriche,
Sì, delle ostriche.
Sì.
And Ich möchte kein Mann sein is a revelation. I mean, of
Una rivelazione, quel titolo tedesco.
how advanced. I mean, his head was so ahead of the time.
Sì, era proprio, stava già lavorando nel futuro.
So I have a particular love, admiration. To me, to say your father's a genius, I suppose is a terrible thing to say, but not very modest. But it's all there in the silent films.
È poco
It's
modesto dire che mio padre è un genio, è difficile dire queste cose, però le sembra che era tutto lì dentro nei film muti.
and there's such economy. There's nothing wasted. There's no extra frame. And when I think that because he so mastered silent film that he was able to make the transition into talkie so easily. I mean, if you think that his first talkie was a musical, it's extraordinary.
Non c'è spreco, non si perde niente nelle pellicole mute. Quindi quando è passato al sonoro era già pronto, aveva già ammaestrato quel medium del cinema.
I think he would be so honored and so stunned that to have this happening now. And I feel so honored that MoMA has done this wonderful restoration, which I'm so looking forward to. And I'm so grateful to be invited here. I mean, Italy, who could resist Italy? And Daddy in Italy is just like perfect.
Papà e l'Italia, due cose sono ovvio perfette. Sono molto onorata e lui, Lubitsch stesso, sarebbe onorato e stupito di trovarsi qui. e sono molto grata a MoMA di New York per questo restauro e al festival che mi ha portato qui, e cosa non mi posso lamentare, è l'Italia.
I'm going to ask a question. As an adult, watching your father's
Yeah.
films now and knowing of his family, knowing of the roots, how do you see he merged in a way European filmmaking spirit with an American spirit? Do you see a sort of merge?
I think Daddy lived in Lubitsch land, right? He invented.
Nel paese di Lubitsch,
He-
lui inventato.
He invented his own world, and he traveled in a bubble of his imagination and his heart, and he just consumed and subsumed everything around him. So I don't think it, to me, and maybe this is an idealistic thing, it just happened. He just absorbed what was around him, and it merged with who he already was. Is that an answer?
La domanda non l'abbiamo tradotta, ma era i due mondi della Germania e dell'America,
E non solo Germania,
e non
l'Europa
solo,
in generale.
ma l'Europa in generale, di cosa fare, cioè il matrimonio con queste due tradizioni e modi di fare. E la risposta era che Lubitsch viveva una specie di bolla, proprio una bollicina da sé creata, che ha assorbito tutto quello che gli era intorno, l'ha fatto suo e viveva in questo mondo particolare.
Hey. We always, our food was always, he ate the same thing every day.
Mangiava
Cold
sempre le
cuts.
stesse cose. Prosciutti
Cold
e-
cuts for lunch. Prunes for breakfast. I mean, we had very German food.
Cibo tedesco, molto tradizionale, non cambiava mai.
He was, I think, very German. What do I know? You know, my father had a German accent.
Che ne sa, dici, ma aveva un accento tedesco, credo che fosse molto tedesco.
But I don't think he ever sat anywhere and thought, how can I be American?
Ma non è che si è messo a sedere un giorno e dire come posso diventare americano.
I mean, you think how amazing it is that in all of Hollywood, these people from Germany or wherever, that they invented Hollywood. The American dream is basically European. It came through Europeans who invented Hollywood. And when you think that he and Billy Wilder sat and wrote these scripts, and Billy and Charlie Brackett told me, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
Il sogno americano è una creazione degli europei. E a pensare che Lubitsch e Billy Wilder si mettono insieme lì a creare proprio il sogno americano, e quello è il fatto.
Yeah, that I was told by several people, never think that your father didn't write everything. When they were working at home in his study, but this is not about silent film.
That's fine. Please, it should be much broader than
Oh.
Prima di andare il soggetto andare nel sonoro.
So he would lock him, so he had a big study and they would all work there. And when it got really difficult, when he couldn't, it wasn't quite coming together, he'd go into the toilet, lock himself in the toilet and think. And then apparently he would shoot out like this and have it, you know, it would all come to him.
In questa grande stanza lavorano tutti insieme, quando non ci poteva più, non venivano queste idee, andava nel bagno, nella toilette, si rinchiudeva, e poi usciva ed era tutto lì, tutto pronto.
He was very short.
Era piccolo.
He told my mother he had rickets, but she didn't believe it. He
Disse la
just,
madre che aveva rickets, quella condizione, non so come dire in italiano, delle
he was
gambe.
just little people.
CKATS, rickets. It's a problem, definitely.
Posso chiedere ancora,
One more
una
question.
Yeah.
Secondo lei a suo padre oggi chi piacerebbe? Quale regista potrebbe piacere a suo padre?
Oh my
Quali
gosh.
dei grandi registi di oggi?
Di oggi o del cinema? Di oggi.
Di oggi.
Of today's
Today, I don't know.
directors, do you think?
Yeah, there's a woman, I can't pronounce her name.
Or a woman.
Nicole Holson, do you know who I mean? She did Lovely and Amazing. She just had a movie that came out. Holcef Holson.
Lovely
It's
and
terrible.
amazing. Joe will look it up while we're speaking.
She just had a movie that came out. I love her.
Pensando a questo nome
Sì, sì, sì.
contemporaneo.
I love Jonathan Demme, but he's not alive anymore.
Jonathan Demme, passato. But what the question was, what do you think your father, if he were alive today, would like?
Which director? I haven't got a clue.
directors?
I have not a
idea.
clue.
No, no.
I have not a clue.
O se c'è una grande diva di oggi che potrebbe, secondo
And this
lei,
is a
prendere il
follow-up
posto
to
delle
that.
grandi dive in un po'
Is there
più
someone who could,
occidentali?
follow Pola, for example, of today's divas? Is there some great actress that he might
Who do I
hypothetically
think? I mean,
have
but
been
Se ce ne sono
drawn to?
ancora, insomma, che hanno quel carisma, quella forza.
Somebody with charisma?
Marianne Cotillard,
Ah,
without any doubt, Marianne Cotillard. And before that, Jessica Lange. My father was about women, and what I would like to see is a retrospective of Lubitsch's women. Because now, at least in America, we are finally, this is the age of, thank you, Mr. Trump, the age of women.
Grazie a Trump e l'età.
And Lubitsch loved women,
Lubitsch amava le donne, era un regista
and
di
his
donne.
family had strong women. His mother and my cousins were strong businesswomen. His father was good for nothing.
Donne d'affari, sua madre, sue cugine, eccetera, ma il padre
He just sat in a cafe, looked good, and
scriveva
I
lui.
did, yeah.
Erano le donne che erano forti.
So I think that, I don't know what I was saying actually, but that
Love a retrospective.
of strong women, I think that
Una retrospettiva di donne forti.
the women of Lubitsch, because I
Donne di
think,
Lubitsch.
and I think he would have plenty to say today, and I'm sorry he's not here to say it.
cioè lei vorrebbe che si potesse fare una
Sì, sì, e avrebbe tanto da dire lui se fosse vivo oggi, ma non si può, ma ecco, questa è un'idea,
Cioè, se ho capito bene, lui delegava alla moglie, eccetera, gli
Did he
affari.
delegate the business to the women in the family?
What business?
Delegava
Well,
cose.
first of all, my parents split up when I was little, so there was no women.
So he's following up on the strong women, the sort of the business women. No, tanto si sono separati molto presto.
Sì.
Parlava del padre che era non il suo padre, il padre di Lubitsch.
Il padre di Lubitsch era inutile.
Sì, sì.
Yeah, he was very choleric. I was told, spoiled. It's
It's your grandfather.
my grandfather. My grandfather.
Nonno paterno.
My grandmother ran the business, and it was a business for large women. And I was told, I hope nobody's Dutch, that so most of the clients were Dutch, because it was fashions for large women.
Ecco, era un negozio di moda, un business di moda per donne grandi. Dice, spero che non sia nessuna dall'Olanda qui, perché i clienti principali erano queste signore olandesi, diciamo, un po' grandi.
Grande, sì.
Prima si parlava del nonno, non di lui, come uomini e donne.
Ma Nico, hai pensato di una cosa tipo nella casa, il lavoro della casa, questo se fosse delega non solo del business, ma anche
Oh, and more domestically, was there a division of labor here? You know,
Division of labor.
No, I mean meaning,
no, in general, sort of running the household sort of thing.
He had nothing to do with it. I mean, what man in Hollywood had anything to do with running the house? Nothing. You had a housekeeper.
Non esiste. A Hollywood non era nessun uomo che lavorava così, aveva
I mean, Daddy,
veramente dirigeva l'atto domestico.
he didn't even know how to drive.
Non
My
sapeva
father.
nemmeno guidare la macchina.
He really,
Peraltro avevano tutti per fare queste cose, ovviamente.
yeah. Anything else?
Altro? Ok, Jay. No, we asked if there was anything else.
Ah,
No.
sì, certo.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Grazie.
No?
No?
No, chiudi o sta facendo una domanda lei?
Qualcosa sul film? Ecco, eccoti, sei di nuovo in viva voce.
Sì, viva voce, sono Frank, traduttore.
Ah, ok, ciao.
Ciao.
No, volevo così qualche curiosità sul restauro, sul film che vedrete.
Non so se ce l'ha lei, ma il curatore di MoMA c'è qui. La signora non è che può rispondere su queste cose. Non sa nulla.
He can answer, he's right
Sì,
there.
andiamo per caso nel lobby dell'albergo.
Dave could talk.
Gli passi il telefono.
Beh, se lo dice a tutti.
Infatti, se viene a dirlo a tutti, perché...
Sì.
Do you want to sit here?
Or just go on the sofa there, it's fine.
And then we're done.
Thank you. Really?
The question was,
Some little gem, una chicca sul restauro, qualche curiosità, some curious detail or some anecdotal thing relating to the restoration of this film.
the only two known copies of the film were in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art, and they were badly damaged prints that came from Czechoslovakia. And for years, no one had really gotten around to comparing these two apparently incomplete prints. It looked like they ran about 40 minutes apiece, and that's the version we've always known of until now. It was just copied off of one of those prints.
I'm going to interrupt that because I've got to translate all of that. Ci sono due copie, ambedue del Museum of Modern Art, ognuna molto danneggiata, ognuna di intorno a 40 minuti.
Right.
E poi
So we thought the rest of the film was lost until
credevano che il resto fosse perduto, finché
finally got around to a few years ago, 3 years ago, comparing the two incomplete prints.
fino a 3 anni fa quando hanno fatto un paragone tra queste due pellicole, due copie.
And it turned out that between the two prints, we did have about 95% of the film.
E tra l'una e l'altra è il risultato che c'era intorno al 95% del film, combinando una pellicola con l'altra.
So we combined them together and had them scanned digitally, and with today's digital technology, you can really restore a great deal of damaged image. So the film looks almost as good as what it looked in 1924.
Quindi una scansione digitale è stata fatta, la tecnologia di oggi permette un risultato molto alto, quindi quello che avremo venerdì nella proiezione è quasi come se fosse nel 24.
Which is kind of a miracle given just how horribly damaged these prints were.
Che sembra proprio un miracolo perché erano davvero danneggiati.
We were able to recreate the original intertitles
Hanno ricreato le didascalie originali
in the style of a Paramount film in 1924
nello stile di un film di Paramount del 24
and put those back in the film.
e reinserirle.
The one scene that is missing we covered with some stills and some explanatory type.
E c'è una scena che manca e quella l'hanno ricreata usando delle fotografie e didascalie che spiegano.
So this is really the first time this movie has been seen in something like its complete form since the 1920s.
Quindi è la prima volta che si esca così dagli anni 20 questo film.
Grazie.
Posso dire una cosa prima della fine della rassegna? I just want to say something which touches on what was said earlier about Lubitsch's relationship with women in his films. And I think if you look through the history of from the silent through to the end, there's a freedom, and particularly I find a sexual freedom to his women that it's very rare to find in general in that period.
Parlando di Lubitsch e le donne, c'è un rapporto con le donne di Lubitsch che è incentrato su una libertà, e proprio una libertà sessuale anche, che è molto che colpisce.
And It's a sexual freedom that's full of joy.
Ed è una libertà sessuale ma piena di gioia.
So from early stars of his like Osias Valda, through obviously Pola Negri, through people like Kate Francis and Miriam Hopkins.
E tra queste 4 donne meravigliose, Ossi Osvalda,
Pola
Negri.
Negri, Kate Francis, Miriam Hopkins, there's a sense of respect, but also of a woman being able to enjoy her pleasures.
un senso di rispetto per la donna, ma anche il senso che comunica di donne che potevano godere dei loro piaceri.
And it's one of the reasons why his films remain so fresh and so exciting for us today.
E una delle ragioni queste per la freschezza e l'emozione di questi film ancora oggi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is an image of what we have to work with.
See.
This is how badly damaged this film was, just no sprocket holes.
Oh my gosh.
And,
Wow.
It ripped off completely. So there
That
are
is amazing.
Major challenges to restoring this film.
Thank you. Ooh, I'm all hooked up. Yesterday.